Ladies and gentlemen, I have the ghost of Christmas past. No, I don't know why I'm associating Greg with ghosts or Christmas. Or the past. Well, the past perhaps, because we did the nasty and the pasty, as they say. Greg was, and is still, impressively so, in this band called Blackfoot Diesel that has a long history. Some of you are going to be, if you're familiar with my old antics at SMB or whatever, you will be very familiar with that. And I think, how many times did SMB and Blackfoot Diesel like actually play together? I was trying to figure out if it was like 3.
It was
because we played together in Blue Felix too, like later a couple times. But
we played at First Avenue together.
There was that one. Yep, that was a famous
garage.
one.
We played at Triple Rock.
That's right. There was a Triple Rock show in there. And then there was the second to last SMB show ever, the one that was at Club Underground.
Okay.
We did that one. That was the one where like Aaron Zilch came up during our set and stapled something to his face.
I think I remember that. Yes.
And that's the defining like memory. And I learned that Club Underground ceiling was not a spray painted drop ceiling.
Okay.
It was made of concrete, or still is.
How did you learn that?
I punched it, and it hurt my hand really bad. Well, because like. Blue Felix once we played the very last show at Nizen's.
Okay.
The place still exists.
Yeah, Nizen's.
But they weren't gonna really do shows. The owner sold it to someone else. Like it was only gonna be quinceañeras and things from their bingo or whatever from there on out.
Because
cover bands maybe.
Because you guys used to book that place all the time.
Yeah, it was a big.
That was a big hub.
It was a big thing.
It was a fun spot. Oh, I used to live in Burnsville. We used to go there all the time to go to shows.
Yeah,
fun fucking spot.
And they would let us be like. Kind of really out of control and stuff. And Chris, who was on the last episode, our guitar player, would always be like, it's funny, like this place pays us really well and they're really nice to us and all this other stuff. And somehow we're the most like destructive and terrible at this place. And he's like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I was like, Chris, it's like the old saying goes, just because she's your favorite whore doesn't mean you're not going to piss on her.
right. And I mean, and money.
And
money. I mean, there was always some fucking nonsense going on there. That was a good time.
Well, but the very last show, because see, they had spray painted drop ceiling. They had just like it was made out of nothing, and we actually asked the guy. I forget his name now. He's a good guy, but the guy was always running it and booked us there and everything like
Josh, at Club Underground.
No, at Nizen's.
At Nizen's, okay.
At Nizen's, I'm mixing all these timelines up together. But we were like, I don't know. It's like, do you care if we get a little rowdy? I know your boss is like selling the place, and he's like, you can do whatever you want. Fuck this place. They're gonna have to renovate it anyway. So we ended up like. I was just sitting there like the old like 9-inch. I was just like breaking the piece of the ceiling out with my bass, and like someone brought a birthday cake for our keyboard player and threw it everywhere. And then me and Dom, the sampler keyboard guy, like jumped and we're hanging just on the metal scaffold. We like tore the entire ceiling, that diagonal thing, just completely out. And the guy was like, "Yeah, good. Here's your buddy. Fuck this place." Like he was mad.
You can do whatever you want.
And he was like, it was like cinematic too, because I think it was Chris was like, okay, but do you realize, sorry, Chris is more lucky. Do you realize who you're saying that to? And he's like, oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to. And he was like, okay. It was just trashed. But yeah, unlike that place, Club Underground, she bit back. Yeah, I jumped and I was like, I'm gonna punch the ceiling. I'm still a little bit young, and like my hand was like swollen and cut up because it was all, it's jagged too. It's that weird,
that jagged stucco type
concrete. Like probably the last thing you should like ever punch. Yeah. Besides your wife, like that, you just don't want to. Those are the two things.
Right.
Don't punch those things. Most other things, little kids, whoever, that's fine. But anyway, so we Greg and I's bands have been intertwined weirdly in history for like a really long time.
Yeah.
We are similar in age. We have gone through many similar channels, like playing shows with like Mushroom Head or particularly there was their side thing, the guy that Ventana, yeah, like Blue Felix played with them like a lot, and
Rick
Thomas.
Rick Thomas, yeah,
and
mutual buddy of ours.
Yeah, he would tell me like. Give me fatherly advice or whatever. Like I don't know. It's just like the circles we inhabited were like kind of similar, even though we didn't really like come from really the same place exactly.
Well, when you get to a like a middling underground level, right? Like on that underground level, it's like a mid level. very small community. You play the same fucking clubs in the country with the same 5 bands, 10 bands, because there's a class system. There's the fucking local bands, then there's like the regional underground, then there's like the national, like middle underground, right?
Yeah.
Which is that, okay?
Yep.
And then there's like the fucking radio, like lower underground, and then there's the fucking you've made it type of shit.
The radio lower underground is so weird too.
Yeah.
Like I just had like some experience playing with bands that like. This is going to be a music one, by the way, guys, so buckle up. Right. I've had, like, comics, and I've tried to have, like, the elderly, like, retired lawyers who are on the neighborhood association with me and stuff. Yeah. Like, they won't do it, but they're my white whale. But a lot of music folks. But, yeah, so back in the day, anyway, because radio is not, whatever. Nothing works like how we remember it anymore. Right. But, like, there would be things that would be like you'd be like, okay, like I'm sitting here listening to like 93X at the car or at whatever overnight warehouse job I have like, 15, 20 years ago. And I'm hearing this thing and like, oh, cool. And like, we're going to play a couple dates with them. And it's like one of the shows would be like in Wisconsin or Omaha and there'd be like nobody there. Right. But then you'd get all the way to like Boise, Idaho. It'd be another spot where they're on the radio and there'd be like 900 people. Like,
very
whoa,
strange.
Like, just how is this not crossing over to like even like night and day though? Not like there's only 100 people. It'd be like 900 or the sound guy.
Yeah,
like
it was back when made a break out of here or whatever. That was all like it was all self-found money out of investors effectively is what it was.
Yeah.
So it wasn't my money. It wasn't label money per se. It was guys that wanted to start a label, right? And they had money during the mortgage. So I knew from my experience. How at that time you needed $1 million, okay, over the course of 18 months.
Oh yes,
to break a band. But if you had that, okay, and if you had good enough product, you stood a chance at turning it over. You could. But, I mean, you're fucking rolling the dice, dude. You're in the casino, right? But if you come up short of that, you're fucked. And that's what I told these guys. I go, dude, they're like, I'm like, you can't come up with fucking $400,000. You got to come up with $1 million. Yep. That's the deal, right? I don't, I'd rather not take 20. I told them, I go, I'd rather not take $20 fucking from you, okay? Then you get halfway into this shit, okay? We can do this, we can do this. Now, keep in mind, this is the beginning of the housing shit when everybody had all this money. Okay, so I go, okay, so they get, roughly, they get a lot of money into it. Let's put it that way, without getting into specifics, okay? They get a lot of fucking money into it. Whatever, fucking market crashes. And you could track our success just to that, okay? With that band and with the bands of that era. And it was about a quarter of the way through, a little less than that, about 20%, okay?
Yeah.
Of the way through. And if you could look at the band's success, if you were about 80% more of what we had done, probably would have put us in an advantageous situation.
I would know.
If you want to look at it that way, looking back at it, right?
Oh, I will look at it 100%. Like, because like how far? Let's just say that like SMB got with zero money was an absolute perfect way because we didn't eventually get anywhere. Like that to me was the biggest proof of concept of what you're telling me. Right. It was like, okay, to cash in on the stuff that like went on with us. Still, it would have taken like we could never figure it out either at the time because we didn't get it.
Right.
We're like, well, why? Like. At what point does like a manager come out of nowhere and go like, hey, you guys like draw like hundreds of people in like Florida and Michigan with like no support? That's not interesting to anybody. Like, nobody cares. Like we're doing something that has not really been recreated by like anyone else new. And like kids too, not weird old drunks, like hot topic kids, little money factories are just piling into any show where we had a foothold in. And it was like, it just didn't. And then eventually it all faded because it just didn't matter. Yeah. Like without any kind of, and I doubt that like, anybody involved cares, but it's like I was filling in for, they were Crash Anthem by then, but I was playing keys for Skyway for a while. And it was like, they would tell me like, the amount of, they would find, like their manager was just some guy with money that was trying to break them. And like, he was like a multi-millionaire and was like dumping, probably like all told like $1 million into it. Like, it's not very private knowledge that one of the last band that I was the bass player for, definitely the singer had some connection to some things. And the dollar amount of that was like probably maybe nearly $1 million got spent, but not very like, all at once or in the right, kind of just all over the place. And then the people with access to that got very irritable and frustrated with the whole situation and said, you're on your own.
Right.
And then that's right around when I joined.
Right.
And I was like, well, ever I did kind of get to ride the bubble of what that had wrought. You know,
Right.
just like, hey, I'm Sid Wilson sitting on my lap in this fucking thing where we're in the line to get bologna sandwiches at some weird outdoor, like, I mean, cool.
Yeah, that's
great. Like, all this
man.
weird shit happened, but like, I kind of missed it. But again, like all these, 100%. It was like you had to, if you wanted to be like the Killers or something, it's like you had to have just multi-millionaire, weird investor guy manager.
You have to have money. You have to look at it like a business.
Pushed it.
Right? And you have to invest in it. You have to invest in your products in order to turn it like fucking anything else. And so, unfortunately, with the musicians, it's a risk with anything, okay? But you got to see it through, and fucking, there's no guarantee that people are going to buy the fucking music.
Well, yeah, you can also
spend
that money and have no one care too. Like
exactly, people are finicky. They're fickle.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what the bet? Like, I was saying this to someone because I was trying to scare someone. There's some younger people that kind of work on the fringes of where I work, and one of them is going to school for music business, and I'm like, well, that's fine. I mean, at this point, like the way places are, they're kind of like, as long as you have a degree, like we'll at least let you clean the toilets at Starbucks. It's like, yeah, you're probably with that degree in particular. I don't know that you're going to do anything, but one of the, like, yeah, you could. It's like I don't have anything, but it's like if I had a degree in like feminist dance therapy or whatever, it would still, I could get a job as a media director for using my actual skills and knowledge and experience. And as long as you have something, and I just kind of like made it up and I'm really good in Photoshop. But they just care. So I'm like, okay, well, like good for you. But I was telling her that like, if you want to know how fucked it is for people in the music business, like people that are really talented, but they don't have like, and you're kind of like, how are they not going anywhere? And I'm like, yeah, they don't have rich parents. That's pretty much it. But if you were like really talented and with it and hot, you could kind of circumvent that. But I was like, now you've worked with some artists. I was like, count for me how many people who are like extremely talented and like writing catchy songs and doing all the right things, and they're hot and they're nowhere and they're getting older. And she's like, several. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty scary. That pretty much means that it's like because no one has spent $1 million on it, it's just not happening.
It's just not happening.
And everyone lies too. Not this very conversation on this podcast could be. I mean, no one that's used to listening to either of us talk, but could be jarring to some because they're like, is that really how it works? Is that like why nothing ever worked out for me? I'm like, yeah. Have you ever noticed that like anyone that you have to also be talented?
If this is the first time you've heard me talk, I got news for you. Fucking it gets darker than this.
Well, no, yeah. But anyone that's into music, ever notice it's like a funny coincidence? They're like, yeah, Eve Six, they were a big band, and it's like, and the guy's dad, who happens to own the record label they're on, he was saying that, like, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's just like everything is like that, but everyone goes, oh, that's not what happened.
Right.
Like even Frank Sinatra's old bios and stuff from, I don't know, the 50s or whatever, they say that he like grew up like shining shoes in the Bowery of like New York, but he came from a very well-to-do. Like,
he did?
Oh, everybody did.
Okay,
nobody didn't.
Well, yeah,
nobody didn't. Like, if you analyze it,
going to get conspiracy. It's all familial money, anyways, man. It's all familial people.
Well, who else is gonna?
That's all that it is. It's all media.
$1 million on you.
It's the media. It's the media, and it's entertainment. It's music. Here's what's so fucking corrupt about it.
Oh yeah,
music is entertainment. Okay.
Yes, it is.
But that's what they use it as. But it's really a pure form of communication. Okay, it's vibration.
Music is funny.
It's channeled energy, right? It's how we can relate to each other. But they use it as entertainment, and so what they do is they keep figureheads in there, so they don't let fucking outside family influences in.
Yeah, like what I'm hearing
to corrupt it.
Yes,
that's the fucking conspiracy. And then what they do is they say,
I don't know that you're totally wrong though, because music has actually changed society a few times.
Then what they do when you say this is say you're fucking anti-Semitic when you bring this up because you hate fucking Jewish people because Jewish people are in power. No, that's not the case. It's you're not letting anyone in that's not part of the family. That's what it is. They twist it all up. You see what I'm saying? They totally twist it. To be able to fucking circumvent the fucking argument. It's not an anti-Semitic thing. Everybody loves Jewish people.
I don't know that anybody said it was, Greg. So
you know what I mean? It's the music industry, and they turn it into this thing because they don't let people outside of the fucking influential family in. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They twist it. They twist it into the shit.
Yeah, well, there's it's very true that,
I'm so passionate about it because it's so fucked up.
Well,
man.
old money tends to stay, you know what I mean, like whatever. And if it is folks of a certain bent, it's going to stay that way.
Right.
And it is very like.
And why would they give up their power?
Well, it's stuff that's. Anywhere you go in the world and there's like an in-group, it's like you're not gonna like America's weird where like we have these moments where like you can be kind of outside and someone will make something happen or someone will do something like they'll invent some weird thing, like not to open this box, but like a cryptocurrency where it kind of like it makes people rich who were never supposed to be sometimes. And,
that was so strange, man. I was like, this is gonna be fucking really weird, man. And then the whole fucking NFT thing. That was just weird for a minute. I'm like, is this, for a second though, that had me thinking that I was a moron. Well, I'm like, am I an idiot here? I think that I'm relatively intelligent, but I didn't get that. And people were like, no, I don't get it either. I'm like, you're fucking smart too, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what, as someone who does kind of get it, there's nothing to get. I will tell you this. The NFT thing, they're two separate things, but the NFT thing bears more resemblance to how fine art historically has been money laundering. Sure. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so you go two ways it's money laundering. The old school of fine arts, snifter of, I have it. But the one, and this more closely resembles the NFT thing. Mm-hmm. One, you go, I commissioned this person to paint a picture for me, and it's like I paid them $10,000 or whatever, and it's such a fine piece of art, and then you're like in your pocket are like art critics and people that own galleries and stuff, right. And they go, oh, this must be worth at least $3 million, and then. No one really buys it, but you go like, I am going to donate this $3 million, not $10,000, $3 million, because it's art, right. And it's subjective. I'm going to donate that to this museum so that way I can write $3 million off of my capital gains thing or whatever. Big time, that's part of what it is. Right. And the NFT thing was similar because NFTs are like, you could sell one, right? You make a picture of an ape or whatever, and you sell one for like $100,000, right? And you can't make copies of it because it's on the blockchain, which that's a real thing in its way, but it's like, who gives an actual fuck is the real question, and I'll get to that. Right. But you can go, okay, well, see, these aren't copies. I have 9 more of these things, and they're all slightly different variations. Sure, right. Those are also worth $100,000, but you see, nobody bought those, so I'm at a $900,000 loss. Now, you didn't actually lose it. A, you made $100,000 off of nothing, and B, you didn't lose any of that. And so you can write it all off. So you're not paying any taxes on that first $100,000 or a bunch of the other stuff that you're doing. And that artificial value of NFTs was kind of like people trying to add the old school like art tax write-off thing to by the way, financial literacy is hilarious. It's like, I know all this stuff, and all I do is make like a meager salary, so there's not a lot I can do. Well, I've exploited it a little bit, but I know all this, and it'll never matter. It's really, really, it's like blue balls for your portfolio. But it's,
I like that. But it's good. I tell you what, it's good information. It's good. Knowledge is good.
It is fun, and you never know when you might run into a situation where you're like, hang on a second, I remember when we learned this, and then, but the other thing is the money laundering thing. Yeah. Now, old school money laundering, and my favorite kind, because it's fun, it's like the mob movie kind, and it dabbles in our world a little bit, is you open up a venue, you see, and you make all your money from prostitution or whatever it is, running guns, smuggling people over the border, cocaine, doesn't matter. And you're like, well, shit, though, like, this is a lot of cash. And, like, I can't buy a house cash from, people are going to notice that kind of thing. And so, like, at a certain point, you can buy an expensive car cash and then, like, sell it in some other state and then be like, oh, it was from selling that car. But they'll still figure it out eventually. Yep. What you want to do is you open a nightclub. Yep. And then you go... there's like 5 people there that night, and you go like, yeah, there was like 5,000 people. Yeah. And that's where all this cash came from, and we have all these expenses, by the way, so on the gains we made, we got to write off, we got to pay the band.
Funny thing is, that guy came in and dropped a ton of cash.
Yeah. And they all these tickets.
Movie, The Score, the De Niro movie, The Score. Oh, yeah. He owns that jazz club in Montreal.
Old school jazz club is the way to do it.
That movie's so fucking good.
It's how bands back in the day used to make so much money because they'd overpay you. They'd be like, oh yeah, like here's $5,000 to play to like nobody because we have to have an expense. Like, oh, of course there was like 5,000 people here because we had this big act playing that they were expensive. And then you write that off in your taxes that you get taxed on because you're doing the up and up. But really, there's like 10 people there. So all of that's how you wash clean all that money. Well, that's the thing with art too, is like you can be like, oh, I bought this piece of art and then it suddenly went up in value. All of my friends and this is higher level, by the way. This isn't like stabbings and prostitution money. This is like international, like whoa. And you're like, oh yeah, this $10 million painting or whatever. Sure. It's worth that much. And then it's like, well, I sold it to like and then the gallery who's like your buddy who you cut in to be like, oh, we bought that, and then they write it off and it's like whatever. And the other funny thing is cryptocurrency in and of itself, its intended use of being like decentralized, so you could go like, you live in like South America, let's say, and you're like, we got to get the fuck, your state you're in is collapsing. It's like, let's sell all our shit, but we're going to sell it and like, buy a cryptocurrency that's on this whatever. We can access it anywhere. We don't have to go through some weird bank that's going to go, hang on a second. The bank is owned by the benevolent Admiral Krang, who thinks you should stay right here. And like, whatever. And you're like, I don't know, it just went away. Right. And then you go somewhere else and you just have your like, hard wallet access code or whatever, and you just get it all back. Same thing with fine pieces of art. Like people would be like, oh, I have to move this money from I don't know, from some country like Poland, maybe to Germany at some point in history. And you go, well, you see, like, no, it was the painting when we originally got it wasn't worth anything. And we were like, oh, that's why we didn't get stopped with a bunch of cash. It was like some unrecognizable, worthless painting, and then you had someone appraise it for all this money, and then like you're just like, oh yeah, like, so you just moved millions of dollars around without it really getting taxed or noticed or whatever. And cryptocurrency and NFTs are, if you're using it the right way, and this is what I think, this is my little personal thing, I kind of don't like listening to people who are like, oh, it's gonna save us from the government's currency and the Fed and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, they have a thing full of nerve gas pointed at your ass from space if you're rattling the cage enough. Right. But what you should be doing with it is fucking like higher level crime. Fake it till you make it. Be poor and then do white collar crime until you're white collar and a criminal. Like I think that's what it's really for. And I mean, I'll say it right. I don't even care. I've mentioned it before because there's not actually anything illegal about this right now. I acquired some. One of the people. There's stories where it's like, man, someone paid me in like 8 Bitcoins for an eighth of weed once, and I was like, I'll just take the 80 or whatever. It's not quite like that, but somebody, because I've always ran in the nerdier side of the world. I did. Wind up with like a little bit of a jump start. But it was back before. It's like, selling it. No one was keeping. There was no taxes on that. It was years ago. Yeah. Whatever. And then I hung on to whatever. And then after a certain amount of time, it was like much lower than like I originally got it at. Though I was way, way, way ahead. Yeah. But now that they started taxing it, I'm like, oh look, it comes as it's like a giant loss, even though I didn't really lose anything. It's just lower than it was when they started paying attention. Sure. But it was up way before they started paying attention. So I'm like, oh, I'll just sell it all. Right. They're like, oh, look at me. I lost like $4,000. And then I put that on 2023's taxes as like a giant loss, but if you own a home.
That's helpful.
Very. Yeah. Because you can write off the interest on your home. Whatever. It's like, if you're not itemizing as like a married homeowner couple, you're out of your mind. At that point, you have to like start doing that. So I'm like, oh, like, I just got like way more money back on a tax return. By the way, too, I just waited 30 days and then bought a bunch of it back for about the same price, and it didn't matter. And I'm just going to hang on to it now. Because I think I'm only going to be able to do that once, because now it's probably going to stay about where it is, and it'll just be there in case anything funny happens. But like, yeah, it's literally, I thought of it after reading a bunch of stuff, and it's one of those things where, you come up with something and you think you're really smart, and then they go, John, there's like already a name for this. It's so common. It's called a crypto wash scheme. That's what you did. And technically it's not illegal yet. Sure. Okay. But that's the thing. That's what...
Not illegal yet is a good spot to be, because it's...
And I did it when it wasn't.
That's a good spot to be at, You know that you got a really good thing for about 12 to 24 months.
Yeah,
usually,
and that, if you pay attention and stuff, like it's like, but that's kind of the thing. Just because it kind of weirdly came up organically, like I feel like stuff like that is like that's your chance to do like awesome like, it's your average everyman's opportunity to do some Wolf of Wall Street style crime. Because even that guy, what he was doing was only illegal basically once they caught him for doing it. And then they were like, well, you have to go to a minimum security prison for like 6 months and then don't you do it again. But, you know, selling those penny stocks and things, like, well, it's not illegal. Now it is.
I was watching this on Netflix, man, the other night. I don't know if you've seen it or know anything about it. It's a fucking crazy story about that shit that went on in Portland, or not in Portland, in Oregon. That Bhagwan movement in the 80s. All those people from India that came over. Wild West Country is what it's called.
I saw ads for it. I never watched that. I feel like I should.
So here's in a nutshell, okay? There's this commune, whatever. It's like this hippie sex cult type of thing, okay?
All cults become sex cults eventually.
Totally, okay? And so it's got some premise in like hedonism, but it's also got some premise in fucking, Buddhism, whatever. It's got some premise
there's roots in,
everything.
Yes.
Okay? And the guy he's a cult of personality. So they owe the Indian government $5 million in taxes, whatever. They claim that that's not the primary reason.
Sure. Just like Mormonism.
Right, exactly. It just happens to swell to $5 million.
Happen to be escaping as creditors, but that's
leave the fucking Antelope, Oregon, and they buy this fucking like 65,000 square foot ranch, okay? Yeah. And then madcap antics ensue, right?
As they always do.
Over the course of of 6 episodes, okay? And so in there's some extremely educated people, like the lawyer for this cult. He was one of them, right? And he just happened to be a lawyer that like picked up and left his very high profile attorney job to be in this cult. And he's like, it's the first time I found happiness. Cool dude.
Oh, sure.
Seemed like a cool dude in the thing, and very chilled and laid back. Like his perception on life overall seemed pretty good. But he said something that was very striking. He's like, America in general, I don't know if he said, he's like, doesn't matter if you get out in the Wild West. He's like, the American legal system in general is the Wild West. Like, if they want to get you, they're going to figure out, even though the law is what it is in black and white, they can figure out different ways for it to mean things. Even though the sentence will not change, they can jockey the meaning around that fucking sentence.
Never thumb your nose at like, that, by the way, too, they'll jockey their way around. That I never knew this. I learned this like embarrassingly recently. But that's what throwing the book at someone means.
Oh, really?
It means it's like, okay, well, like, you seem like a good guy, and you were in a tight spot, and you did a bad thing. You shouldn't have pulled a gun on that guy, but also maybe you had to. So you know what, like, you shouldn't have had it in the first place. So we're gonna do like 5 years probation and good behavior, blah blah blah. Maybe 6 months of community service, or we hate you and you're always a problem and you're a nightmare and you don't work and you've been in here before, and it's like, so okay, you were technically on private property. You should never have had that firearm. You did point it at that guy, which is both assault and a terroristic threat. And there's like, technically, if we want to, there's like 50 laws you broke. So we can either go, because we hate your guts, we're going to just, every last one we can find is going on your sentence.
Yeah.
Different guy does exact same thing. And you're like, all right, so shit happens. Okay. We're going to look the other way on a bunch of this stuff. I think everyone would sort of agree that, and that's the thing, you literally 2 different outcomes depending on exactly how it is that they feel about you.
Right.
And that's what, when they're like, we're throwing the book at you. And that is what happened to, not that he didn't deserve it or whatever, but like Martin Shkreli, the Farmer Bro guy, the guy that was like gouging.
Guy,
And the thing was, here's the thing.
You can't. You doubling down is a bad idea.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Bad idea, man.
Everybody.
I've done it many times, and that one time, has it ever fucking paid off, dude? And I will not do it moving forward. It's just a bad tactic.
It's a bad tactic, and that you keep your head down is often good advice when it comes to a lot of things. Yeah. And in his case, the thing is everybody that's gotten that rich has fucking broken a gazillion laws. Like, they just have. If you look into anybody's shit, like, they're like, oh, you didn't pay this contractor, you broke, especially when you're young like that. But generally speaking, like, if you look into like Wally McCarthy's whatever, it's like, oh, you guys technically shouldn't have been giving out loans under the table to all these strippers. But
remember that old Billionaire Boys Club? when we were kids. Like Judd Reinhold or Judd Nelson was the lead actor. I don't know. It's an old story. Same premise.
Yeah.
Young kids, they end up like killing people to get like they're sociopaths. Basically, there's something going on when you're breaking the law. You're doing something.
You did something. You were cooking some books.
There's violently something wrong.
Yes.
If you're getting rich that quickly.
And what you want to do is when you become one of those guys, you want to be like. You want to do the thing where they talk about like the richest people in the world. It's like there's a bunch of people richer than Jeff Bezos and whatever, and they paid to not have their name on that list. Like there's like Saudi trillionaires and like people who own an entire country that's resource extraction. It's like, dude, the rich. It's like the tech people that have made $100 billion are nothing compared to some of the people out there, and you've never heard of them, and they want to keep it that way because they're smart.
Right.
And so guys like Martin Shkreli are like kind of like, well, fuck you, and it's like, okay, well then. How about we were going to just let you be some rich asshole, but since you really suck, we're going to go ahead and crack open just all the books. Yeah. And just have a little peek.
How about this fucking
And he got in deep shit because they actually looked.
Right. This fucking dude, this Bankman-Fried dude or whatever. This fucking...
Bankman-Fried, one of those other weird crypto
fucking dude,
con artists.
You know much about him?
Yes, I know something.
So that fucking guy, dude, like... Okay, I will riff on the younger generation now because this motherfucker squarely falls in that category.
I would agree. I think
this motherfucker feels like he could fucking like come out here, not do anything, not work, not have any idea what a work ethic is, right? Like sit there and then fucking
living the dream,
fabricate wealth and like spread and bloviate shit and talk shit about a whole half of the country, right? Mm-hmm. And then fabricate money and then toss it around. In the name of a so-called good cause. Basically, he's a fucking like one of the biggest criminals of the last decade. And it's like it's just so, to me, it's just so ass backwards how we've gotten to a point to where that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And as a younger generation, to me, that's parenting. That's fucking parenting.
Well,
you don't let kids don't get to that age. He might be a genius or whatever, but you gotta fucking, I'm sorry, I got beat when I was a kid, and I'm happy that was the case. Yeah. Because you don't turn out to be that way when you get whooped with the belt. I don't think.
Well,
I don't know. That's just what I'm saying, because and I'm not condoning violence on children, but what I'm saying is that, how do I put this? Like, there's a lack of spine in this fucking world, right? You can't just fabricate money and be a criminal like that, and then in your own head think that you have good causes. Like that was his thing.
Well, that's the thing.
I would set a good cause.
I would prefer, I guess. But what the hell is the roadmap for that? I mean, like if I would say as an old guy, like. Make like just morally where I stand. To me, everything like the comedian from Watchmen, like it's all kind of a joke. So I'm like, dude, if you can make up fake money out of nowhere, good, do that. But like, if you don't, here's where I draw the line, and here's where Satan and I have a lot in common. I don't have a lot of respect for people that like get caught for their hubris. Like I'm like,
you got to be a good criminal, man. If you don't get caught, okay. First of all, don't get caught. I have no respect for criminals that get because I'm not gonna. This is not bragging.
Make $1 billion out of thin air and then shut up and just spend your money in Dubai or something.
I'm grateful for the fact that I got no felonies out on my record over my head. There should be. Okay, now that's not anything other than the fact that if you're going to do things, don't get caught. Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's all that I'm saying. Now, this guy clearly didn't fall into that category for one. And the fabrication of money fucks up the economical system. I mean, on that level,
along with other things, though,
on that level, right? Like, and along with other things. Now, if you could come up with, 10 grand, 20 grand, I tell you what, everyone down the block ain't gonna be able to do that. No. I ain't gonna fucking tell you that. Now, is that hypocritical? Some people may say yes.
Maybe.
Okay, now I'm gonna say, I think it's apples and oranges because you're not fucking with the economy.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? On a scale, right?
Yeah, I don't know. The forces at work in the way our economy works. I'm but don't get me wrong. I am not like kind of as much as I enjoy mayhem and stuff. Like I'm not like an anarchist. Like I'm someone who's like, dude, nothing is going to be very much fun if everything completely like some people have this wet dream, and I mean on both sides. I mean like me and my guns, or let's burn it all down, and like both your fat ass and your young Twinkie ass are going to be strapped to the truck of some people who you've never heard of before, who have now decided they're in charge. And like, it's just going to be bad and not fun. And you saw what happened there's like no toilet paper because there was everyone had to stay inside. Like, dude, the grid didn't fall. It stubbed its toe. We got an F on that shit. Like, imagine if like aliens showed up and be like, well, there's no water now because we just can't handle anything. And in the minute the nice little thing we have built up goes. So I'm just getting it out of the way that I'm like, when I say I kind of like things to get sort of perturbed and shaken up, I don't mean devastatingly where I think some cool like anarcho commune is going to be like, no, everyone's just going to get sick and die. Like, it's going to be terrible. Like, you don't want that. No. You want this. You want this to be better, but trust me, you want it to be Mad Men, not Mad Max. That's why Mad Max is not actually as fun as it looks.
Right. We're on the same page. We're totally on the same page.
But when there's so much stuff out there, like you were talking about the real estate thing, like, so much money is imaginary. Like, when people go, cryptocurrency is bullshit, but gold is real, I'm like, it's a shiny rock that we've decided is worth something because it always has been. Now, it's worth something because we've decided it has been, and I'm okay with that. Like, I might, for instance, have a brick of gold in my safe because I know that in 20 years that 10 grand I saved up won't be worth that anymore, but that thing will be worth whatever the market value is in those dollars at that time. So it'll hold its value in that way. Now, am I delusional enough to go like, if the grid ever goes down, this will be worth something? It's like, nope, that's going to be food, water, bullets, and human slaves. That's it. No one's going to care about gold when everybody's eating each other. And to wit, things like cryptocurrency and stuff, I also know when people are like, well, no, you see, it's a way, the blockchain, I'm like, okay, here's all I'm hearing. Enough people believe that it's worth something, so it is. Because it's like that South Park where the aliens give everyone space bucks. They're like, what the fuck is space bucks? What, you guys just decided this was worth something. So when people monkey with shit a little bit and suddenly it makes people that like bought AMC penny stocks millionaires, and the people that are like in charge of like all that are like, why don't you just go to work and stop trying to play our game? I'm like, no, I think you deserve to get fucked over a little, and I think those goofballs on Reddit deserve to make a little money off you.
No, that's... Hey, I'm all for that. I'm all, a little bit of...
I'm not here just to sell cars until maybe I get a chance to buy a trailer home. Fuck you.
Totally.
I'm better than that.
And trust me, I like a good dose of chaos.
Yeah.
For sure. I like a good dose of chaos. Yeah, it's some fucking interesting times.
Again, it's what we were saying before we started, where I had that sort of concern that I'm like people are like, you just wish everyone was just exactly like you, and I'm like, no, I don't. Nothing. We would all die. Nothing would work. Everyone would just be this con artist. That's like, how do I like not like and it would be totally. Believe me, we need things to be a certain way, but it's weird how much in the last 10 years we've played around with we've sort of just like walked out on that frozen lake a little, where things are just sort of imaginary. It's like, why you make a product where you manufacture like 6 of them in an hour, and they cost like $1,000 for someone to buy, and you make like $18 an hour. Now I know there's all this, like, there's rent on the building and all this stuff, but I'm like, when you break value down to a simple way that people can understand, like in a tribal 100 people in a village kind of way, it's like, that makes no sense. But when you get into this like entire global system of stuff, like, well, okay, but the importing it to other parts of the world where money is worth different amounts of money and local thing and you're like, well, okay, I guess that makes sense. But so many people are starting to be like, I think this is fucking stupid, and you have a yacht, and I'm making these things that I can't afford to buy, and like,
there's a lot that goes in. Here's what it is you realize that in order to get ahead, really, you have to incorporate. You have to play. You have to get into the game.
Yeah,
you got to get into the game. And so you got to incorporate because you got to write stuff off. You have to come up with your own idea. You got to patent. You got to fucking whatever trademark. You have to do that, which is great. But then you're in that, and when you're by getting involved in that, you are effectively you're going to play greasy. One way or the other.
You gotta.
You have to, because it's capitalism. Okay. Yeah. Now here's where people get lost on it, is that the alternative to, okay, that's fine, you cannot do that. The alternative to that is that you make $20-25 an hour. You go to a warehouse, you work for the union, right?
Sure.
And you make $40 an hour, okay? Now, in that $40 an hour, your fucking union dues, your medical, all this is jacked. Okay, whatever, $45, good money. Mm-hmm. Miserable motherfucking job. Okay.
Yes.
Miserable fucking job.
That's the thing. People talk about that stuff. It's like, I don't want to work for the railroad, though.
No.
Like, I'm not good at that. I'm good at...
You don't want to know why motherfuckers sing gospel songs while they're working on the railroad?
Yeah.
Because they're talking to motherfucking God, okay? Because they hate their motherfucking job, okay? That's why they sing the motherfucking gospel songs,
That's actually pretty funny.
I've been working on the railroad, right?
The days never finish. I was like, I'll be working.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. It ruined, like, the people always are like, oh, get into the trades. I'm like, dude, if I were to do, I'm already so old that I can't even really do, like, my...
Listen, the trades are great.
Brother-in-law's an HVAC guy, but 23.
You're not a tradesman, neither am I.
No.
Okay, and listen, I have the utmost respect for all of my tradesmen friends because they're tough motherfuckers.
Oh, they know what they're doing inside and out, and it's amazing.
I like to consider myself a grown ass man of a different ilk. Okay, right?
Yeah.
It's just not a tradesman, right? So whatever. It's just that now you could thrive not doing that, but you gotta go do choice A. Right, and you're mortgaging your purity of soul, your fucking morals and shit. Okay, people want to have a human being wants to have things both ways. Okay, and that's just human nature. And so, unfortunately, even grown adults have a hard time wrapping their heads around the fact that just ain't motherfucking so. Okay, so here's where I come to peace with capitalism. I didn't make that rule. Okay. You've thrust that upon me.
Yeah, here we are stuck here.
We're stuck here, okay?
Yeah.
You've thrust that upon me. You've thrust these rules upon me. So I'm going to duck and dodge within your rules and profit off of that. And listen, if every fucking door that I go in is fucking dirty.
Yeah. And possibly booby-trapped.
Look, I'm going to look up to my motherfucking maker and be like, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah,
okay? And
that's a big question.
You know what
really.
I'm saying? I'm going to go to bed okay. I get to a degree. I'm not going to starve.
No, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so I guess that's where we're at. And I think people get it twisted where I hate America. No, you don't hate America. What you hate is the fact that you can't reconcile your morals with this. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I do. There's a funny, and it's the guy, and I think this is funny, and I think you'd be okay with me telling the story. So the glass blower that works right next to Chris, because Chris from Blue Felix is a glass blower for Minnesota Legit, and that's... If you're wondering where the connection of how I wound up being like the creative director there, it's because Chris was like, "Hey, if we really want a guy to do this, I got a guy, but you're maybe gonna have to pay him." You know, like, and that's kind of how I wound up where I was there. And but they all kind of have their stations in the big glass blowing thing. And the guy next to him is a guy named Kyle, who's an interesting cat. He's one of the it's him, me, and then I think the business manager Jeff, whose office is next to mine. I think we're the three people that are legally strapped at work. Yeah. And it's like we all might have slightly different ideologies, but I'm like, I'm one of those guys, you go far enough left to get the guns back. Like I've fully got an AK up. I mean, I got fucking a dumb collection at this point. But like, and I tend to walk around with a firearm on me.
That's good.
And Kyle does too.
I'm a big gun supporter.
It's a lot. It's just a lot of fun. But Kyle, we like to. He's a little bit more of like a Punisher skull T-shirt guy, though.
Sure.
Very pro, women's rights and gay people can get married and stuff. So it's like we have that common ground. We can get along just fine. The rest of it's all economic shit that we can
max out on the bench too.
The
bench press.
He's like if when they show Beavis as an adult.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
It could go it could go a couple different ways with the Punisher shirt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's just his folks. His folks are law enforcement. But the funny thing is, he's been blowing glass from back when that was like felonious.
Yeah.
Do you remember like in the late '90s, like the guys at Clown Glass? It's like making paraphernalia. Everyone did it under fake names. He's from that. He's about our age, like from that era.
So it's like in him.
Of whatever.
So that's like what he does.
He's an interesting, but the thing is, he's an interesting like pro law enforcement criminal, I guess you would say.
I'm the same way. I almost went to school to be a cop. Very recently.
It's kind of a funny thing, but Chris and him talk, and I'm like, sometimes I wish I could just leave a microphone over at their bench because some of it is like really, really, really funny when they go back and forth. And but one time I was out of my office and I was over there hanging around, and I just happened to overhear Kyle had gone on basically kind of a tirade about how he both wants the like the cheapest flat screen TV possible or whatever, but also wants more jobs to like come back to America. And it's like,
Sure.
Chris is a little joke at his expense because, anyone with a Punisher Skull t-shirt, some might call a little fashy. And Chris was like, well, Kyle, I think we could bring more jobs back here and pay bottom dollar for high-end electronics if there was just two different kinds of people.
Right.
I was like, that's not what I'm saying.
Right,
And Chris is like, well, you're kind of implying it with what you're hoping for.
Right.
And they're friends. It's fine or whatever. But I was like, I love that.
We'd have to knock down all the wall too.
To this day, I was like, I've always loved that. Like, well, what if there was? Has anyone in history ever come up with this idea before? What if there was two different kinds of people? Right. Some of them we don't pay any money to, and the rest just get all the TVs for really cheap. Yeah. I don't know how we would draw that line. Maybe on how they looked or their background. I don't know, something. Yeah. It might be a little tough to enforce, but if we get a bunch of guys with uniforms, I'm almost positive we can make this work. He's like, John, I'm like, I know that's not really what you're saying, man. I'm just saying, having your cake and eating it too, the thing you were just talking about, it does. See, there's no real answer. No, that's the wacky thing about this, because there's moments where I'll say things, and again, like a stranger on the internet, I'm like, oh, so you're just like an anarcho-communist lefty or whatever. And there's moments where I'll say things, and I'm like, are you actually just kind of pro-fascist? I'm like, what is this? I'm like, no, it's just a big ball of shit where there's no real answer. Well, and I'm not pro either of those things, but I'm just saying that I'm like, you can kind of just whip shit at the wall and draw circles around it and be like. And I mean, do I enjoy perhaps, the again, like the chaos, like romantically, those things are fun. Like, oh, there's going to be a people's revolution. Well, or do I like the pageantry and uniforms of a good fascist death march, with tubas and everything?
Because there's a plot build and everything we've ever seen in our life.
I don't really want any of it.
I don't know if
it's all bad.
Post fucking capitalistic U.S. world in the fall of, in a coup. I don't know if we want to experience that.
No, we would not have fun.
I don't know if we want a part of that plot build, and if we want to experise the plot collapse.
I don't know if I may wish upon a star, that would be the only thing. Like, I don't want any of this, right? No. I'm just giving this is a big capital I and capital F. It's a big motherfucking if.
Yeah.
But one thing that, and I don't know, it might be part of my heritage, something that just sounds kind of fun, would be like a big rotten upheaval happens, right? Like everything falls apart, and then some big, because we're never gonna really see what people say we're gonna see as long as there's food and everything's cool.
Right?
They're like, oh, no. We get reality show hosts and stuff. It's all a joke.
Right.
It has to be starvation, no hope. That's when the real guy shows up. We don't know who that is. We don't know who that is. He looks nothing like anything that we're seeing right now anywhere. It's just. When the chips are actually down, that's when that shit happens. And I would just love to get accidentally I applied for a job and be like, oh, you're really good at PR and we don't call it propaganda anymore, but whatever. And be like, would you?
Exactly.
Would you be?
That's funny. I never thought of it that way. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, it is what it is. Yeah,
that's public relations.
It's exactly and
you're shining a turd is what it is for the general public.
You're kind of great at this. It's would you listen? There's people starving in the streets, right? And we kind of gotta start hitting people with the butts of guns to get them in line, and people are whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be one of the people getting hit with a gun. They're like, no. It's and I don't really want to be one of the guys with the gun. No. But would you mind being a minister of propaganda? You know what I mean? Would you like to? I mean, you're gonna have to wear this uniform. Actually, it's very flattering. Okay, just to get swept up in the fun of the world falling apart in some awful iron-fisted group. I don't want to be the guy giving the speeches. Just John, you get to be on this team. Now we're all going to die horribly eventually. It never lasts. The tables always turn. But I'm what a fun ride that would be.
So kind of would you put it as the equivalent of the host on the Hunger Games?
A little, yeah.
Kind of like that?
Yeah, I should compare it to that.
Would you kind of dig on being that dude?
I should compare it to that more than anything that's ever really happened, because that might be a bad look. No, I
mean, your own riff on that.
Yeah. I'd just be the guy who's ladies and gentlemen, it's who designed that great logo everyone has on their arm? It's I did that.
Katniss, the flames in his dress. Really? Are you going to do that again this year?
Slick. Wow, you guys really turned everyone against this one group. I'm oh, yeah, I used all the classics, they drank and they womanize. We want people who are on the up and up to be on this side. And then I'll get hung eventually. But the thing is,
I tell you what though, man, in that
or eaten alive.
That's a good spot to be in, because in that environment, you're You're part of the party.
Yeah.
Everything is fucking going to shit, and everybody knows it, and it's total nonsense. But if you have to be doing something, you might as well be Bob Barker.
I want to really, and I think the people that regularly kind of watch me know where I stand. I don't want that to happen. I want the Star Trek future. I want everything to be good, but I'm just saying if that happens, I would rather not starve to death in a hovel, writing a note hoping that someone else in my family across state lines gets it. I'd rather be wearing a really nice suit, walking around with my hands behind my back, and just going so I see that you're trying to that seems like fun.
Sure.
And then it's just and then I get to leave the room knowing that I don't actually have to sully my linens or break my wrist. Someone else will blow a whistle, and dogs and guys with bats are gonna. But I'll be going home to drink wine and talk to the guy in charge of some other thing.
Right.
And until we're in a bunker getting bombs rained on it, for 5 years. Because it's all it is this 5-year extension. You're okay, I didn't starve to death. I will get beheaded at the end of this, but I got to kind of live out a little bit of
I
this.
always wanted to have, just if I wanted to, just naked bitches at any time, just to bang them. Just if I wanted to.
Well, that's why we were in bands, right?
I know, yeah. I was exactly. That's part of the reason. I mean, at a young age, that was a big draw to it. Well, sure. I loved it. It's a perk. You know what I mean?
We talk about how music was treated as entertainment, but it's actually this weird, powerful. I mean, you can overthrow governments or go become someone that has for lack of a better word, a harem of willing young women or whatever. When you're not rich, you're not a Saudi prince. You're not someone that's supposed to be able to do that. And there's actually books written about how artists are dangerous because they can transcend classes.
Yeah. I have my own theories, real quickly about
go right ahead.
Why musicians were assassinated, right? Bob Marley, John Lennon, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
We can agree on that, right? I think we got.
Definitely. Anybody that's social upheaval. I mean, listen, even people that weren't musicians that kind of tried. You know what I mean? Guys like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Jesus. They definitely just would kill those guys.
Well, right, exactly.
So, that's just what they would do, and the musicians were in that same vein.
Right.
Got the similar treatment.
Even ones that maybe, at the 27 Club, whatever, even ones that maybe weren't so blatantly political. Anyone that taps the vein of vibration on a pure level that the system...
Power.
Correct, too much power. So what they realized is we don't need to kill people anymore. What we'll do is we'll just leak the artist's music and let people steal it and not pay them and starve them.
Right, they won't prop up so high.
Starve them out.
We'll knock the legs out from under them.
Yeah. So now what they did was
nowadays they don't gotta burn a book; they just remove it.
Yeah. And then what they did was they removed the youth of the artists out of the system and they forced them into the workforce because you can't foster new musicians, you can't foster the new band, new underground scene, you know what I mean? You can't foster all this stuff. You can't do it like you used to. So they got smart. Why are we killing these guys once they get big? We'll just starve them out.
Well, because you're martyring them that way.
Exactly.
You don't want to do that.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Actually, it does.
That's why they didn't prosecute anyone when Napster came out. They refused. I'm like, why? This is a collapse of the industry.
Yeah, this does seem like there's copyright crimes and various things. Yeah. Now, part of that, just to be fair, I actually agree with you. I actually I
think it's part of it. I don't think that's the reason.
Well, most things are opportunistic. See, this is the thing. That people, it can always be a little of both.
Yeah.
Where it's people are we did 9/11, burning the Reichstag building or whatever.
Right.
Or, no, there was really nothing weird connected to it at all. When really it was both. It was it happened on its own, kind of. But
in fact, quite oftentimes it is both.
It was an opportunity to then go, oh, look, we can just start spying on everybody now, and we can just go, take over all these opium fields in Afghanistan.
In the movie The Departed, where they're watching, and Alec Baldwin's getting all pumped. He's like, Patriot Act. He's all fucking stoked about, he's like their typical cop.
I gotta, that was one of the... There was when I was first dating my wife Alexis. We've been together for quite a while now, and so part of the joke was just we're 13 years apart, but we're older. It's not creepy anymore. But
how long have you guys been married for?
We've been married only for 2 years, but we had been together for I think we've been together for 8 now.
Wow.
So like, and like for real. Yeah, she's the one, and she's my best friend, and she's normally probably would have said hi and everything. She works long hours and she's not feeling super great right now, so she's just kind of like, I need to go to bed, and I'm like, you don't have to stay up. Like, you can go to bed if you want. Please do. I don't want you to get sick, but. Oh yeah, right. We had this tradition when we were first together, and it was called John's girlfriend falls asleep during his favorite 90s movie, Mystery Theater, where I'd like put on like Pulp Fiction, and she like wouldn't quite make it through the whole thing until I showed her like a YouTube clip of the does he look like a bitch scene, and she's like, this is amazing, what is this from? It's like that movie you saw the first 10 minutes of or whatever. So one of them though is The Departed, because that song came on, you know. I'm like,
what is it?
The Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah, Dropkick Murphys. And
you know, it's from this awesome Scorsese, because I've shown her like Casino and Goodfellas, and she's like, oh, it's that guy, and it's like, yeah, it's like an Irish mob movie with Jack Nicholson in it, like, ooh, like the 1989 Joker. Yeah, that guy, Jack Nicholson. Yeah. You'll like this. I haven't gotten around to that one yet. Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. God, so many side stories. One time when I was seeing this other chick, we went to this was years ago. There was like in St. Paul, there was like an Irish fest or whatever every year, St. Patrick's Day or something like that. And like the mayor would come out and all this stuff, but they got the Dropkick Murphys to play. It was like free too. So there was like it was outside.
That had to be a fucking blast.
Oh, every punk rocker, like even people that like barely cared were there. And it was like, and then the people that really cared were there in their kilts and boots and ready to cause a problem and everything like that. And man, that movie had just it was like 2006, I think The Departed came out. And this had to be 2007 or 8 or something. And like there was a gazillion people.
That movie is so good. It's so good.
Really, 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 really good. And it's a really high older Nicholson point for me. Like I really like him.
Yeah, I mean, every time I watch it still too, I pick something new up.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's.
I don't know. I've probably seen it 6-7 times.
It's one of the ones I've rewatched like it's one of those good Scorsese movies, like his older ones. I'm like, oh, this holds up to his kind of original '90s hits, you know. But like when they played like. They just like they talked through this long extended intro, you know, before it started. And it's like I have never seen just like a giant mess of a circle pit like that. I was like, we got like this chick was like one of those ones I could like lift up with like one hand. It was like she's like, we gotta go, and I'm like, yeah, I got you. I'm just like walking through the mud, covered, just running into people like, hey, that's me. I'm like, hey, we gotta get out of here. Then we like got back, and we were like up close, so I was just like watching them, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a little rowdy up here. When I finally like had to like kind of get back out, I realized that there was like 5,000 people just at this thing, just like, oh right, it's free and everyone's drunk. Yeah. And like it's just this out of control mess. And I'd never seen them before, and I was just like, I like a good punk band or whatever, and I was just like, this was fucking crazy. Yeah. And then the whoever the mayor of St. Paul was at the time got up and like downed a pint of Guinness with the singer, and he's like, oh, he just puts his fat guy hat on him and whatever, and he's like, yeah, everybody just go. It was like that license, do whatever you want. Yeah. It's like, oh, the mayor was just like getting drunk and just like, fuck this whole place up. Like everyone was like, okay.
That sounds like a good time. Yeah.
It was pretty wild. I was still at that young age where I like was like okay with the fact that my ribs hurt, you know, late. Like now I would just be like in the hospital, but yeah. Or at the very least taking a week off of work. Right. This is like, but yeah. Not to randomly, I have to show Alexis that movie because it's really, I think she'll like it and it's really good. It's like she has surprised me with things where I'm like, is this going to be like too slow and boring or whatever? Right. Like I showed her the 1980s thing, you know? Yeah. Like, is she going to like this? Because it's a slow burn, but she fucking loved it. She was like the psychological tension behind. You don't know, you know.
That's good when you watch people, when you have a partner or a buddy or whoever that you're watching a movie with that likes the same brand of. I like the same type of shit. The psychological, yeah. Some people like gore. I mean, whatever your bag is, that's cool. I like gore in small doses.
Yeah, she didn't care so much about, like me, I'm also a big fan of the practical effects and that or whatever. She's like, that's impressive, but it's mostly that, like, the weird isolation and that nobody trusts each other. She's just like, that's, because she's got,
up like, in the snow, that's a very stark setting.
Yeah, it's such a weird, dismal movie, and like she works in more the physical medical field or whatever, but it's like she could have gotten into, I think, like some kind of psychology thing, but that's just so much more school. Right. You know, it's awesome and it's fun, but it's just like, that's, if you really want to be Hannibal Lecter, it's like 11 years of grad school, you know.
And it's not a bunch of money at the end either.
No, unless,
really, unless you're a doctor.
Yeah, and you see
that's a doctor.
It's another one of those, all the way full circle to the beginning before we get into Dear Asshole. It's like the musician thing where you see people and you go, well, that guy's rich. And you're like, no. His family's rich and he got a degree in something cool. Like, Bruce Wayne's dad was a doctor.
Right.
But that wasn't, their money came from like strip mining Africa or some shit. Like, it's like, that's just like a cool job, or some photographer has a loft in New York, and it's like, no. They come from like a rich family.
Third fucking king of Scotland.
Yeah, that's just their cool.
Now live in New York.
Their cool job they have is taking like artsy pictures of a chair, so some other guy can go, this is worth $10 billion. They can launder money. See?
Exactly. Yeah. Head of Wayne International.
And that, so it makes you go, oh, you could be a psychiatrist and be like this rich, and like, no.
Yeah.
So she got more into like heart stuff, which was the move, but she does love a good just psychological torture session, like so I was like, there's certain weird movies.
The Cell, remember that one? That was cool. Jennifer Lopez and Vincent D'Onofrio.
I like that one. I was like, the whole time I was watching it though, I was like, you know what, if someone had taken the same director, the same special effects people, and the same kind of like set pieces, like that horse getting like dissected with the pieces of glass and all that crazy shit.
Yeah.
And the guy in that throne room and stuff, and just like reboot Hellraiser and like do it just like this.
Just like that, yeah. Like Hellraiser for the TRL generation. Yeah, with the
crazy.
Fucking Starks. Yeah, like, because that's what
that movie was on. The Cell had its unsettling moments, but I was kind of like not mega invested in the story.
Right.
Like, oh, just reboot Hellraiser and then take the same people and just make.
It was more the visuals in the Cell. Yeah,
it was gorgeous. I should maybe rewatch that too. I'm sure I'll roll my eyes at a lot of the plot points, but like the fucking way it looked and everything. And again, as a guy that's before I settled into a day job, my money came from a lot of like cinematographic things and whatever. So I find that stuff. I love it. It's gonna always be a little bit of a part of me in that movie. I'm just like, damn. Like even the stuff that was CG is like, for the time, it's kind of like one of those Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, where it's like, this still looks kind of good.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of stuff right now looks like shit, and this was from 15 years ago, and it actually looks pretty awesome. Like, it's always fun when they're like, how did this work, and then some piece of garbage with, like, twice the budget somehow didn't look as good,
Right.
That always gets to me, where it's just the people in charge somehow made the right calls, and this is actually beautiful.
They see things,
Yeah, I guess it was just someone had a vision, and they saw it all the way through.
Like
and
a good producer with in the music industry, or with a hear thing, you hear shit,
Yeah, like that Rick Rubin thing, where it's like the what is it, I've been so into, he has like a podcast. It's a little dry, but I like listening to him and stuff. But like, his thing that I will take to heart for fucking ever, he's like, the composition musically like isn't done when there's nothing left that you can add. It's done when there's nothing left that you can take away without it not being a thing anymore or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, God, that's so smart.
Right.
Like, just cutting all, like, just like, oh, this is too much. This is too much. Yeah. Like, how could you say everything you want to say with the least amount going on to kind of keep everyone on? I'm like,
that's what you want. That's a song.
God, that's so good.
Song. That's a song. People, what you want is, because I had writer's block for a while, right? Now the music's just been fucking pouring out of me. And here was the trick, man. The key was like, when you listen to music, right, the best songs, do you ever think about the notes that they're being played? No. Not one time, okay? And you're a musician. I'm a musician. Not one fucking time, okay? And then quite often, it's the same notes. Okay, so when I'm writing, I'm not going to think about what the fuck I'm doing. It's just going to be what comes out.
Yeah, it's just going to be whatever's there.
And if it ends up being simple, then that's what's simple on the fretboard. But I tell you what, when I haven't thought about what I've written, that's what has connected with the most people. You know what I'm saying? Because people don't think about the complexity of shit.
No, they really don't. And it's almost a whole other podcast where I feel like anything that I've ever done, that's one of those things where like it worked, right? Now, not made millions of dollars, but it's like, and I know at this point, you've done enough things.
Yeah.
Like, some of those ones are magic. There's things from like 2004 that people still bring up, and it's gonna be the one that I like, the stuff that I agonized over and fucked around with. It's like just forgotten to history. The stuff that got written in one day, where it almost felt like it was coming through me, and I'm kind of a believer of this.
Well, yeah, it was being fed to you.
The antenna, the brain as an antenna kind of thing that people have done way too many psychedelics talk about, and I'm sure we both would sort of agree.
I believe everything you're saying.
Yeah, where it's like that stuff, for unsurprisingly, just connects with everybody. Like, it's just like where I'm like, I don't even know what I'm talking about with the lyrics. It's just coming out, and everyone's like, yeah, when you really look at it, it doesn't make any sense when you're listening to it. You just kind of are like, yeah, this guy. It's like, yeah, that thing where it's just speaking through you. It's like a radio that's picking up a station and it's playing the Beatles.
Yeah.
And the radio's like, look what I'm doing. And you're like, yeah, but like, you're not doing that. It's coming from somewhere else, and I feel like we've both maybe experienced that a little, where it's like the stuff everyone loves is just coming. It's just coming out, and it's just the way it is, and you can never force it or trick it. It's just, you get tuned into the right thing, and suddenly it's like, and that I think does go back to what we were talking about, where it's like some people are very dialed into it to the point where they can alter the course of human whatever, and then the people that want things to stay the way they are might take umbrage with that.
Well, right.
And perhaps kind of be
Tesla,
like, hey!
Tesla back in the fucking day.
I think, everything I've heard about him, the things that he's described, where it's like, it sounds a little silly and weird and crazy, but he's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I just got the picture of the circuit board in my head and I just started doing it. And I'm like, people are like, he has to be, no, he's he was an educated, he knew what he was doing. But I'm like, yeah, he was describing being a conduit there.
I'm a firm believer that there's higher intelligence, or whatever you want to call it, right? That at any point in time could plant information.
Well,
I mean, there you go. You want that? If we want that guy to be the deliverer of this message, right?
Yeah.
Then there is a fucking Wi-Fi connection between our brain and their mothership.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikola Tesla happened to be the chosen person to download the information into.
He was tuned into it properly.
Yeah.
And what I always think too are like, how can we all be different yet all be one, and all, how can time, I have this thing, it's romantic. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if I believe this in the visceral specific way, but I always, how they talk about how if like a 4-dimensional object or being were to reach into our world, it'd be like if a 3-dimensional person could like reach into a 2-dimensional world, like the person there couldn't see you if you're above or below them, but as your finger goes through, they'd see like the slice of it, and you pull it away and be like, it just disappeared, but it's still there. They can't perceive it.
Right.
And I'm always like, you imagine the earth as like this globe, and like we are the 7 billion fingertips of God. Like, just, it's like, how, it's like, of course this isn't that, but we don't see all of this. It's like the same thing.
That's the thing.
And then sometimes one of those, every once in a while, really kind of whatever the transceiver is, just really gets tuned in. It's like, oh, this is how everything actually works, or whatever. And I think those people sometimes end up. It's amazing Tesla died at an old age and wasn't taken out by someone who was like,
right,
because that happens.
When you start to say things like what you just said about the 4-dimensional, how little we really know.
We don't know much.
So you start to wrap your head around that, and then that's when I'm like, if we really don't know that much, then honestly, how convicted can I really be about my own opinions? Let alone the ones that I'm trying to push on other fucking people. You know what I'm saying?
You kind of can't.
You can't. You fucking can't. You have to just kind of go with the flow. You have to just kind of surrender and go with the motherfucking flow.
You really do. Well, and I've always said the frustrating thing about people who are super, and I mean, it is a quality in a way, but people who are really, really convicted about their beliefs, I'm like, the problem with people's beliefs is that they actually believe them. Well, where I'm like, it's like, I'm like, well, maybe we're the 7 billion fingerprints of God. It's like, okay, so you believe in God, and you believe in, like, hey, I don't actually know. I'm just throwing shit out there that kind of makes sense. But if you're like, no, this is how it works. There's a heaven and there's a hell. I'm like, okay. You're taking this a little bit too serious. Again, the comedian from the watch. You're taking this a little bit too seriously here, bud.
Right.
I'm like, I'm with you. I'm interested in that as like a point of view or whatever, but I'm like, but I'm not all in on anything, because I don't think it's very honest of me to do so.
Right.
Because there's the amount of doubt I feel, I don't think is nothing, and I think it's always like a thing to keep me sort of honest.
Well, exactly.
It's like I kind of think this,
and it keeps you learning things too.
And it does. If you don't get too locked in, you might hear something and go, hey, maybe that guy has a point. Maybe I should start doing things a little bit more like this. Yep. The time has about come, as we've gone a little over an hour, and that's okay. There's no hard and fast rules with this guy. And I think what You should come back because you have a very good ability to get me very wired and set up.
Yeah,
and I like.
I don't have a problem talking.
Well, yeah, and like obviously you and I aren't gonna necessarily like agree on everything, but it doesn't matter because we don't have to, and that's good. Like I don't want someone to just sit and I don't think we were like virulently arguing about anything, anyways, but like. Really, you can be kind of wound up, and that's good.
Really, here's the thing, too, man, is that as time goes by, there's so much shit that's happened to me over the last couple of years, dude, that I have been through the ringer.
Yeah.
I just am not going to get worked up over anything, period, anymore.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to...
Holmes, it ain't going to happen. I'm here to have a good time with people that I care about, that I've been through a lot of shit with, and then hopefully foster better relationships with people. And if that's not the case, then fucking deuces, That's the way. Yeah. That's how I'm going to operate moving forward, with everyone.
And by the way, is your shirt a Friday the 13th reference or is it not? The Camp Crystal Lake.
Which one?
Leaves. The thing you're wearing there.
So I grew up in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Oh, so that's actually like a place. Like I thought it might have been like a, people like
brother, that's my last name, Moog, right?
Yeah,
that's my brother. This is my brother, commemorating my brothers. I got an 11-year-old brother than me. Okay. So he played hockey growing up. So he got this as his 30th anniversary for his club hockey. Never fucking wears it. Gave it to me when I was just back home with him.
Gotcha.
I'm like, dude, that's a dope jersey. I will fucking wear that thing. So I grew up in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Okay, I got you. I was like, I thought maybe it was like Camp Crystal Lake was where Jason killed everybody. So I'm like, is that a fun or is it from a real place? It's from a real place.
Yeah, a real place. That's just conveniently. That just happened to be where I grew up. Is Crystal Lake.
I kept looking at the patch, being like, is there like a hockey mascot? No, there's not. Okay, yeah. All right. I had to get that out of my system because I kept thinking about it.
Yeah.
So this book. Dear Asshole, 101 tear-out letters to the morons who muck up your life by Jillian Madison and Michelle Madison, who I don't think are real people.
Yes.
Or their dad owns a publishing company or something. And since you're new, and I've done this millions of times, but like reading the back, and you've seen band bios and things, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
The nothing that this says is just suspicious. Like, Jillian and Michelle Madison have built a network of well-connected pop culture websites and podcasts, none named, which currently receive over 40 million page views per month and have been featured on thousands of professional sites and blogs, none named. Where? They live in Connecticut, the birthplace of assholes. Please visit them at www.foodnetworkhumor.com, which I've never heard of, and www.pophangover.com and damnyouautocorrect.com.
Like, I don't know any of this.
I don't know. And what you're supposed to do is tear these out. So if one of them is like, by the way, this is classist as shit. It's like, dear grocery carryout guy, why did you put the eggs on the bottom, you doofus?
So it's like total fucking upper crust, like Manhattan, Connecticut.
Yeah, and it's like
douchebag.
It's unrelatable as shit. You're like, okay, like, dear server, how you were late with my food. Like, it's weird though because it's almost so bad that you're like, this has to be ironic. But some of it, when you read it, you're like, it's not though. They're like, they seem like the joke is that they're serious. And again, to my parents' credit, I think maybe they kind of were like, John's gonna like puzzle over this, like the guy from Seven's Murders. Yeah. Like, I try to figure out like, what is the tone or direction of this thing?
Let's see what we got. What do we got?
All right. So, and I never read ahead. Yeah. So it's like perfect. Some of these are funny and some of them just are, fine. I don't know. But okay. So this one is like, so just for context, it'll be like, dear asshole who, grossed up the bathroom in this public. But if you leave the note in the bathroom, that person's not coming back. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
But so this is, dear constantly cheery asshole. So, okay. This might be a friend of yours who's a little too happy, I guess.
Okay.
All right. You're not spreading joy. You're making us want to kill ourselves. Woo, this is intense. All right.
Okay.
With your forced positivity and your phony permagrin. Now, may I say, I think I actually might vibe with this one a little bit more.
That came out the card in the page.
Message received. You love life and you shit Technicolor rainbows. Now hop into a crock pot and simmer down. This is just written by someone's mom.
Hop into a crock pot.
I don't
simmer down.
I love that, by the way, too, like, my main co-host Meredith and I have occasionally, like, workshopped a couple of these lines and came up with, like, funnier punchlines in less than 3 minutes.
I like that one.
They're just spitting shit out. Okay.
I like that one.
Because you're at a 10 and we need you at a 4.
Oh, that's awful.
Oh, this is like someone running a team meeting at a job you hate. All right, you're acting deranged, doodling smiley faces on things and skipping around like a hyperactive child who just overdosed on pixie sticks.
Lord.
This is uncomfortably stupid. Life isn't that grand all the time, and it's like, okay, the people that wrote this book are clearly like nepo babies from like a publishing company. It's like, I'm sure life is maybe a little bit better for you than some, but okay, life isn't that grand all the time. So put your unicorn pillowcases in storage and join the rest of us in the real world. Respectively, this is weird. Respectfully, P.S. Ease off the red pills. Now that's funny because now reds were like uppers, like the Fear and Loathing days or whatever. But it's in 2011, the whole like you've been like red pilled, bro. Like that wasn't a thing yet.
It wasn't.
No. That's relative. Like the Matrix was out, right?
Yeah.
But the whole like online, that's like a 2000 at the earliest, like 14, maybe 15.
So they were ahead of the time.
Yeah, they don't mean... This is actually kind of one of the weirder... They don't mean this how it looks like at all. And also, because it doesn't make sense. Yes, but if you're... I'm sure many people have. But if you're like just like super vacuously happy or whatever, ironically... Going by the modern definition, you wouldn't be... The red pill's like, you see how it really... The blue pills, you wake up back in the Matrix and the steak tastes like steak and whatever. So this is just about like old school like Benzedrines or some shit, like weird, like 70s speed or something. But like if you read it now, you'd be like, how... Whoa, this is... This adds more to that whole like... So the theory that it was written by AI was debunked. Unless two things. The 2011 thing is full blown like a lie. Like they're just like, it's for sale right now, but it was written a long time ago or whatever. It was written in like 2021, and they just put 2011 because you're not allowed to lie in a book. Right. I don't know.
Right.
Or
I think they lie in books all the time.
I think they maybe do. But the other thing,
it's called college.
Yeah, or the Bible, whatever.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter. Like the whole thing is that like. My better theory is that it was written by AI, but it was also put out in 2011 because it like fell through. It was written by AI actually in like 2029, and it's like a Cyberdyne. Like they created time travel and they were able to, but all they could really do is send information back. So it's like in the Nine Inch Nails Year Zero thing, where it's like all you could get like weird messages online because you can't send objects, but you can send information through like a quantum entanglement back to a certain point, so that people were getting weird leaks of things that hadn't happened yet or whatever. And then someone just used it to print this garbage fucking book through like a wormhole. And this is like a secret weird message from the future. Ease off the red pills. So yeah, that's Dear Asshole, and I'm happy that I could share that with you.
Yeah,
and that was
I appreciate it.
Particularly nightmarish page.
It's been good hanging.
It has been very good hanging, and I think you should definitely come back and do the podcast again. Yeah. And one of these times, we are going to start our very own futuristic cryptocurrency money laundering thing.
I'm all about it, and we won't get caught.
We won't get caught. We're bringing all 11 listeners with us, and we're going to be rich and have our own island.
And they better keep their mouths shut,
where we won't do anything creepy.
Even though we're the ones opening up our mouths about it.
Oh, we're going to tell them that here's if you've learned nothing else from this particular episode, keep your goddamn mouth shut.
The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.